Welcome back to The Narrative. I'm your storyteller, Calistro Faria. Joining me now is Daisy Hazzard, Public Relations Officer of the Public Workers Union, Grenada's largest and most powerful trade union. She has been taking pot shots on a radio program at another union leader, Jude, the leader of the Grenada Union of Teachers, who seems to be advocating the firing of public officers. He's accusing them of sabotaging systems that have affected his members. And so he's taken pot shots. Now she's taking back some pot shots. She's here to talk to us about exactly what seems to be this fracture in solidarity in Grenada. Welcome to the program, Daisy.
Thank you, Kalistra, and it's good to be on your program. I think perhaps this is my first time in quite a while. I want to sort of recalibrate the use of the word potshot, because my intervention on the Shaggy program yesterday was definitely not a potshot, which is why I introduced myself, which is why I spoke as the PRO of the Public Workers Union. And what we sought to do was to sort of recalibrate the landscape. Sometimes even within family, we have to chid each other. We have to tap each other on the hand very gently.
When you call on Shaggy, one of the things that you said was that if there was something that this administration needs to give to Mr. Jude Bartholomew, although you never mentioned his name throughout that, but we know who you're talking about, if the government has to give him something, they should go ahead and give him so he can be quiet. That's a pot shot. So let's recalibrate everything.
So let's recalibrate everything.
But it seems to be, it's interesting though, that you seem to have two unions in a back and forth. You had to call this radio program to bring clarity to the situation, to defend your members after Mr. Bartholomew, the leader of the GUT, made these accusations, and it's unusual for a union leader to be advocating the firing of workers in the first place. I mean, it's odd. How did solidarity get to this point in Grenada, Daisy?
And that is where I want to take the conversation. I don't think there is a problem at all with solidarity among unions in Grenada, because I can tell you that the president of the GUT and the president of the Public Workers Union spoke yesterday. They had a conversation. I also received a call from Mr. Jude Bartholomew yesterday, and I wasn't able to take that call, but I also called him back this morning. So the channels are very, very open. The lines of communication are very open. But, you know, we are all human, and sometimes we err. And it is sometimes necessary as well to correct your brother, to correct your sister, or to even course correct your own self. And so we have to always remember our mandate as trade unionists. We have to always remember our mandate as a labor movement. Our mandate under the ILO, International Labour Organization, is to advocate for workers, to be part of that tripartite arrangement between between employer, between the worker, and the union, to ensure that there is social justice within the workplace, to ensure that there is harmony and peace within the work situation, so that workers can benefit, so that employer can benefit. And so when we see the president of another union going about advocating perhaps the firing of other workers and using words like sabotage and so, we know that at that moment, something is definitely off. And when we exhaust channels where perhaps we can sort of say, let us have that conversation, and those channels don't seem to work, then we utilize other channels. But I'm happy to say that there is nothing wrong with solidarity in Grenada, that we do respect the GUT as a sister union. We value our camaraderie with them. We value our association with them under the umbrella body of the TUC. But as a PWU, once we have to advocate for and defend our workers and support our workers, we will do that. And even if it means that we have to sort of chid our brother, or course correct a sister or brother or a sister to course correct, we are going to do that, because our mandate never stops, and which is to advocate and to represent our workers.
He might be saying that he is representing his members to the best of his ability when he made the pronouncements that he made. I understand there's a situation of late payments to teachers, the constituents that he represents, that pay slips are not up to date, so that they are not aware of deductions that are being made. This is what I was told was part of the issue that prompted his comments. So he may think that when he raises the issue of sabotage, that public officers who happen to be members of your union mostly are sabotaging the systems that is affecting his members. He may believe that he is representing his people and that he's doing whatever it takes as a union leader to provide a representation that is his mandate.
And Kalistra, I saw that you had the grace to smile a bit when you said that. because there is no context and there is no premise within which a union leader should ever find themselves uh, coming against workers, because the role of any union, wheresoever you belong, is to advocate on behalf of workers. And workers are not always right. And even in representing workers and sometimes in defending workers, one of the things that we as union have to acknowledge is that a worker is sometimes wrong. Sometimes this is the angle at which we seek to represent a worker. But where you find someone going off on that sort of a tangent, introducing the word sabotage, you kind of wonder what is happening here. Is it that someone has sort of gotten carried away a little bit? Is it perhaps that someone has sort of lost sight of their mandate? And we do not believe that the brother has any ill intentions. In fact, that is what has been communicated to our union. We hear our brother when he's speaking in the public domain, at times representing workers of the Public Workers Union. But let us speak to the matter of pay slips. We live in the digital age. We live in the age where a lot of things are at the touch of a button on your device. And so no worker within the government service should be going into any workplace to complain to say, I've not received pay slips. If you've not received pay slips, it means one, you've either not checked your email, or two, you've not given the government's machinery a valid email address by which you can receive your pay slip. Since bi-monthly payments came in over a year ago, workers have been receiving their pay slips by email. And so those workers out there who are not receiving their email, their pay slips by email, and have to have a president going before the nation to say, we don't get our pay slips from the ministry and we have to go there to get a paper receipt. It tells us that there is something wrong with your digital construct. It tells us, the public, that there is a sector of our workers who really needs to get on board with the digital revolution that is perhaps leaving them behind. And so if I were the president of a union, I wouldn't find myself saying that on the national airwaves at all. I would say to my members, get on board with digital. You seem to have a question.
I was going to ask you, you said that he reached out to your president, Brian Grimes. He also reached out to you. I didn't quite get it clear whether you did have a conversation with him when you returned this call. What was the nature of the conversation? Where is the PWU and the GUT now in terms of its highest leadership?
Right. The PWU and the GUT, we are sister unions. We belong under the umbrella body of the TUC, and there will never be a time when we do not stand in solidarity with each other. As family members do, sometimes you have little problems, and when that happens, you work them out. And so the GUT and the PWU...
Advocating the dismissal of your members is a little problem.
And that is why...
That's like a youngish child burning the house down.
That's the point. And that is why when we saw our fellow brethren seeming to go off the rails in the manner, we had to say it's time to course correct. Because we've been observing, and we know that our brother, who is the president of another union, would definitely never be intending to say, let me fire workers. Or to you, something was definitely not correct. And so it had to be course corrected, and it's been done. And there is no animus at all.
But in all fairness, though, the president of the GUT has, in the last year and a half or so, his sentiments seem to be very pro-government, a little bit more pro-government than one might expect from a union leader, and somehow a bit anti. This is not the first time that he has expressed anti-worker sentiments and pro-government sentiments. It's not the first time I've heard him.
And I would say, Kalistra, that is something that the nation is asking themselves. That's a question that all of Grenada is asking themselves, because let's be very clear. All of us as citizens, we have the right to our political biases. We have the right to determine if we want to support or represent a political party. But when you have a mandate to represent workers as a trade unionist, that mandate must be carried about in tangent with what the ILO advocates, because that's the umbrella body on which you fall. And that body is no simple body. We recognize the UN, United Nations. We recognize the WHO, WHO Health Organization, and we must also recognize the ILO. And my learned brother at the other union level is well aware of that. And so we must ask ourselves, and the members of that union must ask themselves, can we go off the rails so far that we lose sight of our mandate? It is okay to support a political party. Trade unions can do that. But a trade union and no trade unionists must ever find themselves at the place where your fight is against workers. Your fight has to be against policy or with policymakers. And that is why I said yesterday, perhaps the conversation has to be had at the level of the CEO, Ministry of Education, and with the senator and minister for education. Because if you are encountering repeated stumbling blocks and obstacles, and you've been having conversations with employees who really don't need to speak with you, because an employee does not have the legal right or the wherewithal to speak with someone else about someone else's personal business, their private finances, and so when the workers at the Ministry of Education, our workers, extend that courtesy, extend the good manners to recognize the office of that person and say, I understand that you're seeking information on behalf of your members. That's a courtesy born out of manners. But really, that conversation must be had with the policymakers and administrators at that ministry. And whatever solutions are going to be put in place must come from there. Because some of the problems that we've heard about, they're not new. They're not emergent. They're generational. But the question we must ask ourselves, and that gentleman, I'm certain, has had time to ponder, am I being true to my mandate? Have I sort of deviated off course? And again, as I've said before, we've had the conversations and we are satisfied that we understand each other and we are all on the same page.
Okay, so what you're saying here is that has Mr. Bartholomew agreed to course correct? Has he admitted that a union leader advocating for the firing of any worker at all is a bit odd for the world that he lives
What
in?
I can say is, based on conversations with my president, we all understand our role. We all understand our role to be supportive to each other within the landscape and within the environment within which we work, and we're satisfied with that.
So was there any
What
sort of
the
undertaking?
future
Was
will
there any
determine itself.
undertaking? So was there any undertaking from him that he would refrain from such expressing publicly such sentiments again? Do you feel
Now
confident that he
that
won't advocate for the firing of workers again, of your members?
I would not be able to speak on behalf of the president of the GUT.
No,
But
I'm
what I
no,
can
no, no, no.
tell you
I am
is,
asked what my question was, do you feel confident that he would not do that again?
I have some confidence that that will not happen again, based on the conversations that has been had. I have that confidence.
Okay. All right. You were going to
Yes.
add something,
And I hope
and
that confidence is well placed.
well, let's see what let's see what happens on the next May Day. um,
Yeah.
well, we are quickly running out of time. Our first interview took up quite a bit of time, but it was an important topic,
Yes.
as you would appreciate. It is a conversation that even the union must be having now. And since you listened, I want to wrap up here by bringing you into the social situation in the country. I mean, the union also being one of the stakeholders in development. Are you guys discussing any sort of involvement, intervention, looking at the social and crisis that we're facing now with this apparent increase in violence in the country? Has the union been having
Certainly,
any discussions about intervention?
certainly as a trade union and among our trade union fraternity, there is nothing within the social landscape that we do not pay attention to, because everything within the social landscape affects our workers and affects our country, our nation as a whole. And so we are very, very concerned about what we're seeing, a lot of the breakdown in our society. And it's not enough to say this happened in the past or this did not happen in the past. It's not enough to say, well, that's not a big deal. It's just, some isolated crime and it's persons among themselves having that kind of a crime. We can say that in passing, but at a serious level, having that conversation, we all must be concerned about how we sleep in our beds at night. Do we feel safer or do we feel less safe? I certainly feel less safe. What we really are calling on government to do is to understand that as an administration, you cannot do it alone. As an administration who is new to government and to governance, you cannot do it alone. And you need all of your social partners with you. And you need to indicate to the public and to show that level of maturity that says, I am reaching out and I'm engaging with social partners, and I'm engaging with the labor movement, with trade unions, to say, how can we arrest the decline that we're seeing in our society? How can we take responsibility for it now? Not knocking shots and talking about what has happened in the past and who was responsible then, but looking at the situation now and saying, how can all of us come together to make some difference and to arrest our social landscape so that we can live in this peaceable Grenada that we all love and belong to?
Be saying that you don't feel like the government is reaching out to what sociologists like to call these informal agents of control within the communities and the stakeholders that can help to fix the situation. You seem to be saying you don't feel like government is reaching out, or at least
I
not
cannot
reaching far
speak.
enough.
I cannot speak on behalf of other organizations. I just listened to Mr. Claude Douglas with that very insightful interview that he had with you. He's a sociologist. What I can tell you from the level of the PW, and I had that conversation with a senior administrator at the General Hospital last week. And I said to that administrator, somehow, under the previous administration, there was every door that we could knock as a union, and it would be immediately opened. There was every opportunity when we felt that there was a problem that workers came to us with, or the ministry or or anybody within the health services management would reach out, but there has not been that engagement. There has not been that reach out. We as union, we have been knocking on doors. We have been stomping the ground. We've been writing letters. We've been calling, and we have not had that sort of an interchange and interaction with government that government should want in its pursuit of governing this country. And that is on the premise and the strength of which I make these comments.
All right. I want to thank you so
Yeah.
much for joining me on The Narrative. Daisy Hazzard, Public Relations Officer of the Public Workers Union. It was good to have you on, and I do hope that the GUT president behaves better and doesn't have you calling Shaggy. Good morning. This is Daisy Hazzard.
I will call when I need to and if I
I,
need to. Be assured of
I know
that.
you. I know you would. I know you would.
Yes,
Thank you
I
so
will.
much for joining us on the program. A pleasure to have you as always. Thank you.
Thank you, Kalisha, for having us. Goodbye.
This is The Narrative. That was Daisy Hazzard, the PRO, Public Relations Officer of the Public Workers Union in Grenada, taking up the issue of a call by a sister union, president of a sister union, for the dismissal of public officers, blaming them for issues that have to do with payment of teachers in the government service. More when we come back.